Welcome to Unleash the Athlete. My name is James Leith, and today's guest is Jake Thompson. He's got a podcast, Compete Every Day. He just wrote a book, Compete Every Day, and I wear a lot of his apparel. He's given me some shirts over the years that we've known each other. In fact, before the coronavirus, COVID-19, we used to meet for coffee every other week, keep each other accountable on things that we're writing and programs that we're doing. He's a keynote speaker. He's dynamic. He started out in the CrossFit world. He tells some great stories in this, but we only spent about 45 minutes together today through Facebook Live. And I read his book a couple days ago. It's really great. It translates well to athletes, to business people. He's working on some new ones. Let's just get started. Please welcome Jake Thompson. So what's up, man? How you doing? Jake Thompson. I feel like we do a podcast or an interview once a month, a week. It's
once a
slowed
month's
down
probably
a little bit.
right. It has. I mean, we do. We hang out. Actually, funny enough, somebody that watches these follows you. Emailed me this morning. Just picked up a book. Let's see here. Coach Jamie Wessels, softball coach at Benbrook, gave me a shout out this morning and is a devoted follower of James Leith. Sent me an email. Yep. And so she pre-ordered the book on Amazon, and then got a couple shirts. And so I sent her a note back and said, if you can cancel your Amazon, order it through here and I'll ship it to you this weekend. So we'll see.
See, there you go, man. I saw this really funny meme today, and it had this person was all decked out in like priest garb with a hat and like carrying this and this. And it said, me walking out of quarantine with all the stuff I bought from Amazon.
That's right.
There's so much stuff. I bought so much stuff, man. It's, and it's like little tiny things. Cause you know, I'm like you, a lot of my gigs have been canceled. I saw your crying post it. Yeah. But you were on a train. So when did you take that photo?
Yeah. So that picture was from my wife and I's trip to Austria in Germany in December. And she was taking like pictures on the train. And I was like, I'm going to make the face like I'm done with Christmas markets. I was like, and so I'd been sitting on it, was like, I need to use this for something because it's just funny. And then yesterday, sure enough, had an event pushed to next year. And so I was like, okay, this is perfect. Let's use it. Like at this point I can just laugh. Well, yeah, I mean it was, but I knew this one, like this was the last one. It was in June. It's middle June. It's Orlando, which is a major hub, especially that airport. So I just had the feeling we were going to push or cancel. And what they ended up doing is canceling all their events through the rest of this year. And so at first that's a panic, but then I was like, let's talk about next year's program. Like, what are you planning? How are you getting? And they're like, well, we're changing all the content. And I was like, well, my topic's not necessarily niche for your audience. Like I was the keynote guy to set the tone on the theme. If that'll carry, then let's just I'll do a free webinar for your attendees this summer. And then we'll just use your deposit for next year because we've already negotiated a better rate than my 2021 rate will be for sure. I was like, let's just do that. And so they were like, awesome. So like, it really wasn't a bad day. Like it was kind of expected. But the idea, the conversations I kept having with people with like the reopenings of like, you know, people on one side are like, oh, hallelujah. People on the other side are like, you guys are idiots. You're going to kill all these people. Like there's no middle ground on social. Because that's what social media is for.
People are forgetting that different areas are being affected differently. I speak to my mom who lives on the Alabama side of the Panhandle near Florida. And she's like, there's nothing that's changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. And she's like, we go to the store and people are distancing, but nobody's talking about it. And the hospitals aren't overrun. There are some parts of the nation where it is chaos. And, you know, people are dying and the hospitals are full. And then there's other parts where it's not being affected. And I think one of the problems is that people think that, well, if this is my experience, it's got to be everybo's experience. So then they make fun of people who are going crazy. And the people who are going crazy are going, you have no heart. Where's your empathy?
Yeah. And and that makes the whole diagnosis tough because you take that with the fact that the information has just been a mass culmination of COVID. So people don't really even know who's died directly of COVID, who just died and had COVID. So then the people that are in the unaffected areas are like, what the heck?
Yep.
And the people in the affected areas are like, we'll see all of this. And so it's just this constant, which is social. And so I just made the post of like, you can be pissed, you can be upset, you can be angry, but like, you can also choose to still do something. Like that's the whole point. And so it was just fitting. I think this whole time has been a social experiment for most people, but for me, it's really just been continual training of controlling the controllables. What's in your control? What can you do today? How can you master the moment and go?
Well, you had a book launch
in
the middle of a pandemic, and I drive by the different movie theaters and they're just empty, right? I'm just like, man, imagine working on a project for 2 years, millions of dollars, and you have this grand opening and the world has shut down. And then I thought about this book that you like literally hand delivered 6 feet away. I don't know how we did that. I'll let people figure that out. We did not hug.
You're not sick. I'm not sick.
You know, that's something that I'm going to struggle with. I'm a hugger. I teach the handshake in the first meeting of any team that I work with.
I think you'll be able to. I think you'll be able to. I think certain people you'll have to kind of ask, can I hug you?
I just bring it in. They'll be like,
I know,
elbow.
but when they do that, like before this, you might have kind of been like, oh, well, okay then. But like now you'd be like, totally get it, totally cool. But other people would be like, I need a hug. Like, I think once we get through this and the dust settles, like 10 years from now, I'm fascinated to watch the documentary on this because I know there's going to be a left wing and a right wing documentary on it. So it's going to be like the Fire Festival. Can you watch both and compare what actually crosses over?
That's interesting. That's a good call.
Yeah, but I think you'll be able to. I mean, a lot of the people I've talked to, like it's kind of split. Some people are like, I'm still keeping 6 feet, and some people are like, come here. Like if I see you, I'm going to hug you. Like
it might be the difference between strangers and friends. Because my last yoga, the last time I went to yoga was in late February. And I remember walking in and, you know, we had a mutual friend who was the instructor. And she was just like, bring it in. And like hugged me. And I was like, oh, we're doing this. Okay, cool. Because I had no idea how it was going to go. Yeah. You have no idea. I mean, if you imagine what the news media or the media was like at the end of February, beginning of March, it was every day 180. It's changing.
Yeah.
Masks are bad. Masks are good. Don't go out. Go out. We're going to be meeting for Easter. It was crazy. And so,
and now you're in the position of, I mean, it's still changing almost daily, which is nuts.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that's in Ohio, and we had the conversation yesterday or 2 days ago about it. And, you know, Ohio is a little bit behind Texas and Florida. And obviously Florida's kind of up front. And he's in the pure panic mode of like, we're just going to crash. This is going to end. And I was like, yeah, but here's the thing. Florida's a good week, 2 weeks in front of everyone. So by the time your state would get to open, we would start seeing the change in Florida. So you're going to know because they're so far ahead, either there's a massive spike again or this is very sustainable. We've got this. And at which point your state's good to open up. Like that's kind of what you want a state that you're not in to be in front a week or two.
Well, Georgia did that, right?
And Georgia too, yeah.
They opened up last week and everybody was freaking out. And I don't remember hearing much about it this last week.
There hasn't. There's still a lot of uproar around it, but there hasn't. But it still comes back to Georgia opening up doesn't control me. It doesn't affect me other than, I mean, everything's still unknown. What am I going to do today?
Now, how does it affect you? What are you doing? What do you do all day? We're gonna talk about this book. I've read it and I am going to gift it like a mofo, and I'm gonna buy it wholesale from you. And
you're too kind. Those are the best things you can hear.
I need to mention one thing.
Okay.
Black, red, and white.
I know it's your colors too. It's been
those
mine
are all my
like day one.
So I need you to know that right now, because I have the I have the 3 books coming out kind of simultaneously: leadership, mental, and character. They're gonna look a lot like this. And you're going to be like,
you're going to have a black one, a red one, and a white one though, right?
You're going to say, I wonder if he copied me. And I just want to go on a record saying, yes, I did. Don't be surprised. It's going to look a lot like this. It's going to be, I mean, who knows? 10 years from now, maybe we have our own publishing company. I don't know. I love you, dude. You're awesome. Thanks. We're going to be friends for a long time. But this was so great, bro. Like it's going to be, I'm going to give it to so many athletes.
Thank you. That warms my heart because I told my wife the scariest moment in the world. The first scariest is ordering all the books because I'd gone through the digital PDFs. We'd proofed everything online, but I hadn't gotten a physical copy. And so when, 1,500 copies are being delivered to me and others are going to the warehouse, you're kind of scared when you first open it. Like you're really excited, but you're like, oh, please don't have a typo or a mess up that we just all missed.
Yeah.
And then you get it and you're like, oh, this is so much fun. And then when I started packing them, once the mailman picked up like the first batch that I sent out and I started giving some out, then it's pure panic of, oh, this isn't like a blog post. Like I'm putting stuff out there. Yeah, I know. And like, then you start to get that internal dialogue of like, oh my God, what if nobody likes this? Like,
self-talk.
Yeah. You play all
I have
those
a book
games.
coming out about that.
you play all those games. And then it's funny because I feel like every author I've talked to said the same thing. Like it's terrifying getting out. And then you're just like, somebody's going to hate it on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
That's 100% okay. And you're good with it because you get more emails and messages and posts of like, here's what I took away. Here's what I loved. Oh my God, I've already read it in 3 days and I've already, done this. And I'm like, okay, we're good.
In one sitting.
Wow.
2 cups of coffee, one sitting. It was beautiful. And it was like reading your blog. That's what it was like.
So a guy told me that last night. He said, I could hear your voice in it. And he said it was short enough, which was my goal, but I wanted it short enough because John Gordon does an amazing job with.
He just came out with another one.
I know.
I didn't even know.
I was about to say, following all of his stuff. I mean, he does, but they're short enough that you're like, I can read this. I'm not heavily taxed. Like if you get too deep, and there's some books I love to go deep on.
Yeah.
Atomic Habits, like James Clear goes deep in a few areas.
Well, that's a book you study. Like you
that's
read
a study
John's book. You study
and that's the
James's
difference.
book. Yeah.
I wanted a book you could read, but that you at least walked away and said, I can do 1 to 2 things immediately off of this. Like here's something I can apply to my life. And I think that's just a good formula for me. So like hearing how you read it in one sitting, I'm like, oh my gosh. But then I'm like, that's actually what I wanted. So awesome.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you're my friend. And so I read it knowing that I've heard most of those stories over coffee at the coffee house.
Yeah.
We will be soon, redoing. I miss hanging out in the morning. So
we're almost there. We're getting there.
I mean, you and I, we meet, we're accountability. And I mean, maybe it was a year ago where you just like, wait, is this the book where you said, by the end of the baseball season, I'll have it done?
I started at opening day.
Tell that story. Tell that story.
So I started writing the book opening day of baseball season because I'd put the book off for 5-ish years. Like my team is like, you got to write a book. And I was like, I'll get to it. I did everything you could. Imposter syndrome, self-limiting beliefs, procrastination. Like I'm not the person to write the book. I don't have the whatever.
Yeah. Who am I
to write all this stuff? And last year, a few factors factored in together. First, I read a couple of books that had gotten pretty big popularity and thought, I can do this. Like if they're getting this, like I can do this. And the second was I lost like 3 speaking gigs that point blank, the meeting planner said, we love you. We think your content's perfect, but such and such has a book and our team wants somebody with a book. And I said, cool, I'll see you next year. It was like that competitive, like, oh, you say I can't, game on. And so I sat down opening day of baseball season, posted it on social for accountability, and put a sticky note on my computer that said October 22nd was game 1 of the World Series or whatever it was. I said, I got to be done by game 1 of the World Series, opening day to end of season, baseball, let's go. And I wrote 40 to 45,000 words. I was writing 500 to 1,000 a day, got to mid to late May. And I was finished. I edited it. I didn't like it. Something was stuck. I got away from the work for a week. It's like that thing that you need to do, but you avoid it at all costs. And I just couldn't figure out what the hole was. And I remember talking to you, I was like, I have a story or two, something's not working. And the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization of Dallas reached out and said, hey, would you keynote our summer workshop? I said, love to. And so I asked about it. And so I have boys 7 to 17 and they're bigs who are 30 to 60. And I was like, I need something catchy enough to keep the kids' attention that they can remember, but meaty enough that the adults aren't bored out of their minds. And I look back through my book and my keynote and I'm like, this is too corporate. This is a corporate talk, how we, develop this stuff in a corporate setting. I said, this doesn't work for the kids. So I was like, well, what are the 7 to 8 things that a kid would take away? Like, what's a catchphrase? Because like you have great catchphrases with UTA. Adam Bradley at Lead 'em Up does some really cool catchphrases. And I remember him mentioning to me once of like, if you can create something catchy that a kid can remember, you can build on that lesson.
That's it, man.
So I said, okay, so I just sketched it out. Here's 7 to 8 things. And I was like looking at it. And it's funny, I had on my desk, I had a John Maxwell book and I had John Gordon's Power of Positive Leadership. And I just was flipping through both of them. And I'm like, this is their format. 7 to 8 catchy things and lessons and then content to support it. I said, this is the book.
Yeah.
So I scrapped like 35 to 40,000 words and started over. And that was the hardest thing of the entire process, was deleting all of it.
But now, did you delete it or just throw it on the floor?
I put it in a parking lot. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it's in my parking lot.
You can still use it. It's just
easily.
You know what's great is when you do that and then you come across it accidentally later.
Yeah.
You're
so
like,
oh,
great.
I have all this. I have all this content.
Well, I started writing the mental resiliency book before I went to IMG. And then when I left IMG to move to Texas to be with my dad, someone was like, you really need to write a book. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. And then it was you that was like, don't you have anything written? I'm like, maybe. And I go in and I think I saw you the next day, but I had like 30,000 words written that I'd completely forgot about. It was even named The Resilient Athlete. And I'm like, wow, like, let's go. And now I've gotten rid of about half of it, but I'm still building on it. But man, that was
But even the half you got rid of, you can always table.
Gold.
Yeah, it is.
Treasure in my computer the whole time.
Because the worst thing is sitting there and just staring at the blinking cursor. And like, I don't even know what to write about. But once you have stuff, you feel like you've already got momentum.
Yeah.
And so,
what was your process?
So for the really, I had the idea because I was pulling a lot of it from keynotes, and then I was taking the sections and diving deeper than I would on a stage.
Yeah.
And so when I did the redo, I broke out the headlines and started going back to the content. So this story works, this doesn't. I need to find examples for this. And timing and things in the news and different stories started popping about, and research just started filling it. And then when I got to a point where I'm writing every day, because it was the 500 to 1,000 words every day. 500 is the minimum.
Yep.
Have to write every day.
I like that, the minimum.
It had to be the minimum, because there were some days I wrote 2,000 to 3,000.
Right, but you knew you would throw some of it away.
But I knew I would throw some of it away. But I read that a long time ago,
writing for the wastebasket. Like, I've heard that before, where you're just like, did I just give you a good one right there?
But I like the idea of like, you're just writing, because some days are crap, but you have to
just got to get it out there. Yeah.
And every author that I've talked to said the same thing. Like, you just have to have those crappy writing days, because it keeps the momentum moving. It's like the days you don't want to go to the gym, but you go, you get a sweat, you feel a little bit better afterwards. It's not your best workout, but you get but
it's a workout.
Momentum. Yeah. And as James Clear talks about in the book, he's like, you keep reinforcing the identity of who you're becoming. Like, you are the person who works out. And so, so it was just a lot of that. And then when I got to a point of like pouring into a chapter, and I was like, ooh, I got way too much here. Like, this one's drinking from a fire hose and these aren't. So I started pulling the content out and putting it over off to the side. And so like, I already have 3 to 4 more books outlined. I've got them mapped out mentally for where I want to go. The Compete Every Day one, like, literally I've got a version of it that we're modifying the chapter titles, the phrases a little bit. The stories will change, but the outline is similar to one I want just for high school athletes. Like, this is written for high school athletes with high school athlete language, specifically for them, because the lessons are transferable. But then the other ones, it's like taking some of these other concepts that came up during the writing process that didn't fit with this book and saying, ooh, that's a good one for a next one. How do I outline that and run with it? So that was it. Once I finished writing the 45,000 redo, I printed it, edited it, made changes, and then I printed 2 copies and sent them to 2 very, very different people to be beta readers, and said, you guys are nothing alike. You both have a really good editing eye. You do a lot of writing. Give me some feedback. One is not a sports person at all, but they're a little competitive, and I needed that perspective, even though it's not my main audience. And then there was someone that's ultra competitive that does a ton of blogging and writing. And so they did edits, sent it back to me, and then we sent it on to the publisher we went with, and they did the copy editing, proofreading again, layout design. And we honestly weren't supposed to have it until June, and then COVID hit. And so we changed the whole production
Like a wrecking
schedule.
ball.
I mean, it did, because I was supposed to get like 500 copies May 10th, because I was keynoting an event May 12th, and they pre-bought like 100 copies.
Yeah.
And then the main batch wasn't coming till June, which is why the Amazon Kindle date is June. The audiobook is this summer. Amazon's not till the fall. Like, that was all based off that initial timeline.
You're going to read it, right?
Yeah, I'm reading the audiobook. I've got a guy editing, doing music. It should be very well produced. The bar is so high for me with Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers. Like, that is the benchmark, I think, in audiobooks.
So good.
And so, yeah, so we're doing that. We're rolling with it. But the traditional bookstore, Amazon, is not till September, because that was the original kind of rollout timeline. Yeah. And when this hit and we got the copies early, I kind of threw my initial marketing plan out the window and said, crap, like, let's just get it out. Let's get it in people's hands now. We'll market it with apparel orders. We'll market it heavily online. But like, you'll see me doing podcasts and shows throughout the summer that were intentionally designed to promote a fall release. But now it's like, how can I get copies in your hands? Because right now, more than ever, I just want you to have this message before we return to quote unquote normal.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff, man. So I love that your first book is the name of your company.
Ties in that branding, right?
We're so alike in so many different ways. It's awesome.
Yeah. The funny story is it originally wasn't going to be.
What was it going to be?
I didn't quite know. I talked about End on Empty as one. I talked about a few different things, because flashback 3 to 4 years, when I started experimenting with the speaking and building out my brand, I was trying to build this life is worth competing for that was similar to Compete Every Day, but was the speaking and everything was completely different. And then like 12, 18, like you and I were having coffee and talked about it with a couple other people. And they're like, you need to roll it all under one. Like your keynote, like everything, just bring it together.
Oh, you were branched out pretty crazy.
Yeah, I was branched out. And so then I started
I came at you pretty hard.
You did.
You're done with this.
You and a few people did. And so I was like, screw it. So I changed my Instagram handles. I changed a lot of that stuff and said, Compete Every Day from now on is a media company. We sell apparel, we sell books, we'll have some journals and other stuff and my talking, but that made the marketing so much easier because the message is there. And so I had to come out with the first book as Compete Every Day, because it'll build that awareness. And then the next book, Win Your Next Possession, all of those can kind of fall under.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great model. And I mean, John Gordon did it with Energy Bus. People are still talking about it. I just started watching, I think it's What We Do in the Shadows, and it's The Office meets vampires.
Okay, so it was an old show back in the day.
Oh, this is very new. This must be a remake.
I've seen it advertised, the FX one. I felt like, and maybe I'm making it up, there was like I thought it was like, okay, so FX did a redo of it. The original, there was a movie in 2014 of it, and I think it was an old TV show.
And it's the premise is that they're doing a documentary on the vampires.
Oh, so I need to start watching that then, because I just saw the advertisements for it and completely zoned out, because I'm like, this was an old movie that wasn't, and it was based on an old TV show. So now that if it's The Office style, like that, Parks and Rec, like that's
hilarious.
My heart.
Yeah. Okay. So there's just 3 vampires, 2 males and a female. One was like, he's kind of the main guy. He was this Genghis Khan type character throughout history. So he's murdered a bunch of people, but he's very simple-minded. And every vampire has what's called a familiar, where it's a normal person. They run errands for you during the day. And I don't want to give any away of it because it's so funny, but the very first episode, okay, so there's actually 4 vampires.
Okay.
There's one guy who's a day walker, and his name's Colin Robinson, and he has a job where he goes all day, but he's an energy vampire. And so the way he feeds is he bores people to sleep. And so he'll be telling a story about some underwear that he got on sale at Walmart, and he's very excited, and the person will just be like falling asleep like this, and then he'll walk away and his eyes are glowing and he's smiling and he's just really excited. It's so funny. Wow. So I recorded that introducing the energy vampire, and then I texted John Gordon. I was like, you got to see this. And he saw it. I was like, dude, I'm sure that your book, The Energy Bus, had a play in making this right here.
Has to.
It's so funny. I love that the comedy of that whole just following them around, because every once in a while the vampire will like freak out and like eat one of the cameramen. And you're just like, I'm not supposed to be laughing at this, but this is funny.
I need to watch it. So I'll start that this weekend.
Yeah.
That style, I love, my wife and I were talking about the other night, like that style ruined old TV for me. And I say that because like I still watch Seinfeld through and through. Love Seinfeld.
Because it breaks the fourth wall.
It breaks the
You're
fourth
in
wall.
on the joke.
But not only that, but like there's no laugh track.
Well, so have you ever watched Friends without the laugh track?
No, but I imagine it's horrible.
So it is terrible because, Joey and Chandler are funny. And now my opinion of Friends has changed throughout the years. I actually think it's one of the worst shows out there, because if you think about it, and I don't want to get too much into it, but the whole show is basically designed around Ross's relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
And he's not the main character, but the show is kind of written that way. The other thing is that if any of them are successful, the other 5 either intentionally or unintentionally try to sabotage the success of that person. And that is the entire show. And it's funny and it's creative, but that's the goal.
And in the moment, everybody was tuned into it, not thinking about that.
Not thinking about it. Yeah. But go on YouTube and watch an interaction between Joey and Chandler, because Joey will say something and then Chandler will say something.
And there's no
they
laughter.
Literally just stand there. Even that little couple seconds right there was awkward, just you and I, because we like to talk. And it's just, when you watch it, you're just like, this is terrible. But that was I think that was the last laugh track show.
I mean, it's funny now because like CBS does it, and CBS has a mix, and maybe NBC has a mix of laugh track shows and non-laugh.
There are still laugh track shows.
There's still a few, and they're mostly CBS shows, which is their kind of audience. But like, I'm trying to think of Big Bang Theory. I don't think had laugh track.
Nope. The Office was, I think, the first one to break away and just let it be awkwardly silent.
And so now like that's a norm. And so like I've flipped on a CBS before. I'm like, oh, what's this new show? And I hear a laugh track. I'm like, I'm out. And you just completely get out of that. But you talk like Friends. Have you listened to or read Talking with Strangers?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Gladwell talks about it in the book about how you can watch it with even the sound off, because all of their facial expressions are that acting style that they tell you exactly what's happening with every expression on their face. And that's obviously our problem in everyday life, is because people's expressions and how they express emotion doesn't necessarily equate to what we expect it to based off what we've seen on TV and what we've been taught.
Well, also, we will read a text message and assign it the facial expression of how we're feeling in the moment.
Yep.
Not the intention of the person sending the text message.
Sarcasm rarely works.
Sarcasm is bitter, I love sarcasm, but like maybe after lunch.
Yep.
And never on text.
Yeah.
Unless that person, like, even unless you're married to them, then maybe you can get away with it. But even then, tread lightly, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about the insides of this book.
Okay.
I would like to know your favorite story that you told in this book. The one that you were just like, you know what? How about this? If I gave an athlete this book, what's the one thing you want them to walk away with?
So the one thing I want them to walk away with is the one thing that I miss for so much of life, in that there are outliers in every situation. There is a kid that's born with LeBron James's genetics. There are those rare few people, but that banking on being that is like trying to bank on your retirement being a lottery ticket. Like the chances you actually winning the lottery are so slim to none. However, if you would like to retire wealthy, if you would like to achieve certain goals, the secrets to excelling in that are the same that help you in sports. Mm-hmm. Showing up, doing the work consistently, making the small choices, quit relying just on your talent, but start relying and giving your best on the things in your control. Like that is the ultimate takeaway, because success doesn't just fall in our lap. And I made those mistakes of believing sports was different than life, and that, I could earn starting positions and success. And if I had the right, built the team and did the work and we all did it together, we could win. But in life, I was like, man, I'm just going to stay busy and keep my hands in stuff, and things will fall in my lap. I'll get a magic tipping point. Something lucky will happen to me. And it doesn't work that way. Lucky
Yeah.
things happen to people that are so busy working, they're ready to seize it. Because most of the time, and I would imagine if we got to the end of our life and could look back and see this different perspective, we would be almost depressed at how many opportunities we missed throughout our life because we hadn't done the work prior to that moment. Therefore, we weren't ready for it or aware of it when it arrived.
Yeah. There's that quote. I forget who says it, but it's an older quote. I'm thinking like a Benjamin Franklin type where he says, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah, I think that's Ben Franklin. And then I believe it was Jefferson had one that says, crap, I just blinked on it. It was luck is opportunity meets preparation.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. Like I made a lot of those mistakes. Young athletes, especially, like we have a growth mindset a lot of times in sports and we miss it in life. And what I want them to see is like, if you want it, like don't let fear, don't let those inside voices, don't let any of that stop you. Just focus on doing the work and on the can't see choices every day, because those create the can't miss results over time.
Yeah, man. It was good. I definitely got that message away. And, it's not hyperbole when I say this is one of the best books I've read for high school athletes. And there's so much potential to write books for that age. Kids are hungry for that. And a lot of the teams that I work with are asking like, what book should I read? What's a good one for a 15-year-old?
Yeah.
Bam. Until mine comes out.
Until you're
and then I'll have a better one. But
then you'll have a book club you can offer them.
I know, man. But there's a lot of good stuff in your book. And I want to honor you for putting in the work. And there's no such thing as a overnight success. And there's that I also talk about how like, oh man, it took like 5 years to become an overnight success, so you put the work in, you committed. I honor that. And if you're listening to this or watching this, check out competeeveryday.com. Check out Jake's book. Jake, I love you, dude.
Thanks, brother. You're good, man. Too. I will tell you before we sign off, you asked me my favorite story in the book. End
it good. Let's go.
It's Heather Dorniden in the 2008.
Oh, what a great video. Yes.
And the reason that helped start it is because that was the very first story I wrote into my first keynote with HPS when I was working with Michael and Amy and AJ.
Heroic public speaking for anybody who's listening.
The first story I wrote is Heather's story because I was like, this embodies not only competition and what it pulls out of us, but the idea of overcoming adversities to see what you're capable of. And so that is the story that kind of kick-started this. So Heather Dorniden was in the Big Ten Indoor Track Championships. It was the women's, I believe, 800-meter final.
2008, I believe.
2008. 3-lap indoor sprint. And for anyone that's ever run the 800, like I was forced to in high school, it is torture because there is no pacing. It is not a short sprint. It is, in the outdoor track, it's 2 laps all out. And I'm still amazed guys do it under 2 minutes. Like that fascinates me.
It's nuts.
But Heather takes off 4 total racers. She's got a lead, first
heavy
lap,
favorite.
Second lap, heavy favorite.
Yeah.
And then she falls, like right before they're getting ready to start the 3rd lap. She trips, face plants into the turf. The other racers avoid her, run around her. And in that moment, like you have to wonder what's going through her head.
A complete stop.
Complete
on
like,
her
face plant. I'm wiped out.
Yes.
And by this point, the other racers are now a quarter of a lap ahead of her on the last lap. And she doesn't even there's no whining. There's no sitting there. There's no slamming the track. It's getting up and going. And she takes off. And I just can't imagine watching it live because I remember watching the YouTube video. And if you're just watching first and second, you're like, oh my gosh, my person's got a chance. We're going to win this. And then all of a sudden you see someone out of the corner of your eye sucking them up, and she does, and she runs down every single person that had a quarter lap, and she's already run 2 laps. Like it's not like she was fresh, but it was that adrenaline kick, that competitive drive. Like I've got to go. That she ran the lap of her strides,
like they were so smooth and just perfect. And I remember just watching her come back around. I was like, she's gonna do this. Oh my gosh! And it's so great to watch that with somebody. I'm gonna put it in the show notes, and please watch it. But I'm glad you brought that one up because Heather, what a great story.
That is the one, because that embodies the book in one thing. And there's so many sports examples of it throughout Lifetime that we could name with it. But like, that's the one I always go back to. Of like the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, like that's what it's about.
Good stuff, brother.
So,
all right, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Well, the restrictions are up in Texas. We are eventually going to be able to start hanging out again.
Yeah, we
have to
are.
do that. So I have a book coming for you in the next 6 months. It'll be my turn next.
Cannot wait.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
Well, there you have it. Jake Thompson. Compete every day. Check out his book. I'll put a link in the show note if you want to grab one of those. And I've been doing a lot of these on Facebook Live, usually about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, because I'm in Dallas, Texas. So try to catch one, and we'll see you next time. Remember, there's an athlete in all of us. Unleash the athlete today. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. He's a great dude, and man, so many good stories. Well, that's it for today, and we will be back again soon with another guest. Remember, there's an athlete in all of us. Unleash the athlete today.